Hello FlossTube, my name is Brian. This is my second video, so welcome back. And in this video I plan on sharing with you some of the projects that I've finished recently, and also I want to share some updates on the progress on things that I have stitched since the last time I made a video. First of all though, I just want to thank everybody for their wonderful response to my first video. I am amazed and overwhelmed at the number of people who have watched, liked, subscribed, and left comments with that video. And your comments were just wonderful. I am completely overblown and feel very welcome and thankful for all of your attention. I never believed that I could ever get that first video would ever get that much attention. So before I share some of my finished projects, I just want to respond to some of the comments that people made. And if I pronounced your name wrong, I'm sorry. Spanish is my second language. I spoke Spanish for a couple of years while I lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and as a result, if I see a name that I don't know how to pronounce, I tend to go for Spanish vowels. It's just the way it is. So if I mispronounce your name, I'm sorry. I'll do the best that I can. First of all, Teresa Wentzler asked to see the spreadsheet that I use to keep track of my projects. So in the notes below, I'm going to post a link to that to a template that I use. It's in Google Sheets. So if you're interested in it, you can look at it, you can copy it to your own Google account and play with it however you want. Just a couple of things. The way it works is there's a tab called Project Card where I enter in all the information about the project that I'm going to be working on. And the rest of the spreadsheet uses the values that are used in that project card. And then there's a daily tab that you fill in the number of stitches that you stitch each day. And there's a weekly and monthly tab that are automatically filled in as you finish a week and as you finish a month. Feel free to use it if you want to. That's fine with me. It uses rolling averages. So there's like a 10-day rolling average and 100-day rolling average, and you can automatically change the number of days in your rolling averages as well. So you can use that to say, well, if I stitch as much as I did in the last 10 days, this is when I will finish. So there's a bunch of predictions based on rolling averages. And just play with it, have fun. If there's anything that you think that could be done to improve it, feel free to let me know, and I'll see what I can do. Or you can, of course, do it on your own. Shazzy C asked if there are any videos available that show how to stitch diagonally like I do. I'm not aware of any videos. I have been on Instagram for a long time, and I've had several people ask me the same kind of question. And so what I did is I've written a blog post that explains how and why I stitch that way. I'll put a link to that post down below, and you can it's pretty lengthy and pretty complicated, but you can read that post and kind of get a feel for why I stitch that way and how I do it. Also, half stitch, cross stitch wanted to know why stitching diagonally makes neater stitches, and that's in that post also, and it's based on a tutorial that I found on parking on the Scarlet Quince website. But basically, it's kind of complicated to explain in a video, but as a summary, your stitches will be neater if you come up in a hole that has 0 or 1 stitch in it already, and go down in a hole that has 2 or 3 stitches in it already. It just is easier to come up in a hole that's empty as opposed to coming up in a hole that has a lot of stitches in it. And there are a couple of, when I first started, I started working in straight columns, which if you work in straight columns, you would also have the same effect. but I started to notice some ridges because of working in straight columns. So then I started zigzagging my edges of my columns as I worked, and when I did that, that made it so I couldn't do that with coming up in a hole. And so I kind of thought about how to do it, and I came up with the idea of going diagonally. I guess another thing you could do is you could just start at the top or at the bottom and do the entire width of the project at once, which I may do sometime. I don't know. I haven't an earth design. I think that'd be really hard because I don't know whether or not I would have a hard time deciding when to start a new color and when to stop a new color, and how much to carry with a project that has that much confetti in it. Also, just as a comment, I've noticed the way I stitch has generated a lot of interest, and I need to say that I'm not the first one who's ever done that. When I first started looking at cross-stitch videos on YouTube, I saw a couple of Russian stitchers that stitched that way, and it kind of intrigued me a little bit. But it took me a while to figure out how to do it the way that I like to do it. So I'm not the first one who's ever stitched that way, I guess. Karen Crafts asked to see some of the equipment that I use, whether I use frames, hoops, Q-snaps, and what kind of stand I use. So I'm going to show you that. When I first started, my wife taught me to use a hoop, and I've come to I don't really like hoops because I always ended up with marks along the edge of the hoop where I held my fabric. And then for a long time I stitched in hand, but I've since decided that stitching in hand makes it so that I can't make my stitches very consistent. I have a hard time with tension. I get better consistency when I have tense fabric. So now I use scroll frames, and I've tried several frames, and the type that I'm using right now is called, by a company called Artisan Designs. It's called a scroll lock frame. This is what it looks like. And what I like about it is, first of all, there's an extra knob here that you can use to tighten up your fabric when you tighten it down. Also, there's a groove inside here that the fabric goes in, and then there's a wooden slat that holds the fabric in. That's nice because I don't have to sew to attach my fabric to the frame. And also, I've tried a frame that had used Velcro to attach the fabric. That was okay, but my tension is so tight that it started to move the Velcro on the scroll rod a little bit. And also, when you're finished, you end up with this big, ugly piece of Velcro stuck to your fabric. So the one problem I have with this frame is that I have a hard time getting the fabric straight in here, and so I get varying tension as I go across. I've never been able to figure out how to make sure that this is straight so that I get constant tension. So if any of you have ever figured out how to do that, I know that the Millennium frame and the Omanique frames all use this same kind of method. So if there's a way that you know how to keep your fabric straight, comment below and let me know, because I'm curious to know how you do that. Now for my stand, I've been stitching with the stand for about a couple of years now, and it's a stand that I made myself based on a video by an Australian FlossTuber named Little Somethings One. She posted a picture of this frame, and when I saw it, I can make that, and that's cheap and it'll work. And since I've started using a frame, I've also taught myself to cross stitch two-handed, and so that's really helped speed me up. So now I wouldn't stitch without a stand at all. So this is my frame. It's basically made out of PVC, and basically it's in three parts. There's the frame that holds my piece. I have this little elbow and a little stub of PVC to hold the project on here, and then I have a leg with elbows on the end for feet, and that just attaches to my frame, and I can rotate this to get the angle that I want or need. Now this is the second set of legs that I've used. I did these, they're shorter, and I have the piece that goes up is closer to the front. I did this for stitching on a table because I didn't need to have great big long legs when I'm on a table, and this is moved towards the front so that it's closer to me when I stitch on a table. Right now that's where I stitch. I stitch on my kitchen table. I put a couple of old pillows on a chair and sit on them so that it elevates me up just enough to make this work. And I really like that. I like stitching at my table because that's about the best place where I have for a good light for being able to see. And I used to stitch in a chair in like our couch, and I used these legs, which are a little bit, they're longer and then the center, and that works better for when I'm stitching kind of as a lap stand. I don't like stitching that way because I tend to end up slouching down and my back starts to hurt a little bit, and it's just not good posture. So I prefer stitching on a kitchen chair where I can sit up a little bit straighter. So that's kind of the equipment that I work with. Sarah Richards talked about how she's much older than me and can't see 36 count, and I'm not that young. But and in fact, the past 2 or 3 years ago, I kind of had a scare because all of a sudden I couldn't see holes very well. I had to really squint, and I have even on 28 count I couldn't see, and I was devastated. And I tried buying a magnifier, and it was just really clunky to try to work with holding a magnifier and stitching. And then I realized that the problem, I'm nearsighted and I have astigmatism and I wear contacts. And I found out that if I took my contacts out, I could see the fabric again. So for a long time I stitched without my contacts in, which it works okay. I can still do that, but it makes everything else around me blurry. I can't watch movies or do anything. I have to concentrate on my stitching. And about a year ago, I got a pair of glasses that have progressive lenses, and those have just been the most wonderful things that I've ever had. They've made it so that I can see the holes in the fabric, and I don't have problems seeing even 36 count. I feel though that I'm on a race to try to get as much done before my eyes go bad. I hope they don't, but there's macular degeneration in my family history, and who knows? I don't know. You know, this is the first time I've ever had to deal with old eyes, and I'm sure they're going to get older and it's going to get harder to see. So I want to get as much done as I can before my eyes make it really hard for me to be able to see. Tracy Salt asked if I railroad. I haven't really railroaded yet. That's probably the next step that I would need to do to make my stitches look perfect. I've tried railroading, and I've not really seen a lot of improvement enough to make me want to do that, to go through the hassle of training myself to railroad. And I'm just stitching for me. I don't ever plan on entering anything in competitions or anything like that. So I guess that if I were to decide I wanted to enter something in a competition, I'd start railroading. But I'm just stitching for me, and everything looks good enough for me to not justify railroading. I've also tried using Thread Heaven. I haven't really seen how that helps. In fact, using Thread Heaven, I've had a couple of times where my thread is actually frayed and broken, and so I I don't really like using thread heaven either. Ms. Oh So Crafty asked to see my stroke of midnight, and so I'm going to show that, and I'm going to show a couple of other things that I've done. I want to share some of the things that I finished over the past few years. And I have some things that I have framed that I don't have ready to show just because they're so big and bulky. I haven't framed a lot recently, and that's just basically because I'm not stitching to have things on my wall. I'm stitching to stitching. But this is the first project that I want to show you. This is called Santa's a Fable and Fantasy, and I'm going to put the details in the notes below for each of these projects because I keep forgetting to say what I'm stitching them on and where they come from. But there'll be details in the notes below if you want to know, if you want to try to find and stitch these. This is called Santa's a Fable and Fantasy. It was a design that was in Cross Stitch and Country Crafts magazine, and it's basically 5 Santas. There's like a patriotic Santa. I don't know where some of these come from, but there's like a wizard Santa. This was really fun to stitch, and I really like it. I like the alphabet across the top. It's also really shiny because there's blending filament in the snowflakes on the corners and the stars and moons and the snow underneath with the tree scene. Another thing about this is kind of interesting is you can see the middle Santa's holding a jump rope. That's a piece of number 8 cord that's couched. So that's the first time I've ever couched. There's a lot of metallic and a lot of blending filament on this, so it's pretty shiny. One thing that's kind of interesting, I don't know if you can see it, but that Santa's is backstitched with a black and gold blending filament, so there's kind of gold sparkles in the outlines of the Santas. So this is, I finished this about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. It actually stitched pretty quickly. And then after I finished that one, that's when I finished. This is Stroke of Midnight. I love this piece. This is what I consider to be my masterpiece so far. This is the piece that I'm most proud of. This is Stroke of Midnight by Teresa Wentzler. Now, Teresa Wentzler is known for a couple of things. She's known for her blended threads, and she's known for her fractional stitches, and she's known for her confetti. And this piece has all of those. If the color is not gray, it's probably blended. That's not entirely true, but the dress is blended. The carpet is all stitched with blended threads. Now, when I started this, I started down in the corner underneath the plant, and I started stitching across the carpet, and then I started working up to the plant. And back then I wasn't parking, and I hit that plant and I got lost in it just because there was so much confetti, and I just couldn't see the way the colors ran. And when I stitch, I have to be able to see so that I know where to go. So I kind of got a little bit discouraged, and I went over and started working on her skirt, and I did all of her skirt, and then I found out about parking, and I thought, I'm going to try parking, because with parking, what I really like about it is you work in 10 by 10 blocks, and I can see how the colors run in a 10 by 10 block. So I started parking on this piece. And the way I was stitching before, I thought it would take me years to finish this. After I started parking, I finished this in about 4 months. And parking was just, when I learned how to do that, that was just such a revelation to me. It made it so that I could stitch so much faster. And so now I park whenever I can because it just works better for me. So a couple of things about this piece. Her head is stitched over one, her head and shoulders. Also the trim, the inserts on her dress, with the vines. Those are stitched over one as well. Now, I love her face because it's stitched over one, and there's so much detail there because it's stitched over one. You've got those little wisps of hair going across her face. Those are also over one. And then just to add icing on the cake, there are beads in her necklace and in her hair. And that's just the topper for it all. I love her. That's why my daughters aren't getting her till I die. But she's just so wonderful. I'm so proud of her. Okay, the next piece that I finished, this is a design by Donna Vermilion Giampa. I don't know how you pronounce her last name. It's called Isaiah 43. And this is a picture of an eagle getting ready to land with mountains in the backdrop. And there's a verse from Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, that says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." I like the verse. That's part of the reason. I like the verse and I like the eagle. And that's the reason why I decided to stitch this. And I really like how it turned out. So the next piece that I've stitched, this is the largest piece that I've stitched to date. And this is another design by Barbara and Cheryl. And it's called A Perfect Setting. And this piece is huge. It's 330 by 200 stitches. So that's 66,000 stitches. And like I say, that's the largest piece I've ever stitched. What really drew me to this piece is I've decided one of the things that draw me to pieces is light, and the way light plays on here. And I was really drawn by the way the light from, I think this is a sunset, the light from the sunset shines on the front of the house, and the side of the house that faces is shadowed. And this was fun to stitch. I mean, I'm not quite as proud as this one as the Teresa Wentzler, because there's no blended stitches. It's all full cross. There's nothing really challenging about this other than the size. And this is another piece that I started years ago, and I started over in this corner and I stitched that first palm tree. And then when I got over near the house with all those bushes and with the tree next to the house, I got lost again. So when I picked this back up to stitch, I started parking, and that fixed all those problems. So, and it was actually on this piece that I started stitching diagonally. This upper half is all stitched diagonally. This was really fun to stitch, although that peach color I got sick of. All of that peach. There's a lot of peach in here. But I really like this piece as well. And I finished this piece last December, just before Christmas. And at the time, I was working one piece at a time, and I had to do something Christmassy. But I didn't want to do something really complicated that would take a long time. So I decided to do this piece, this is the 12 Days, which is the series that was released by Plum Street Sampler last year. And I had time over Christmas break. My industry kind of shuts down between Christmas and New Year's. And so I started stitching this, and my goal was to finish it during the 12 days of Christmas, and I did. So I finished it before the 12th day of Christmas. And this is how it turned out. I mean, it's not fancy. I just used DMC, and this is 28 count Lambswool Jobelan. So it's not no hand-dyed threads or anything, but I really like how it turned out, and it was really fun and fast to stitch. I'd never stitched anything primitive before, so it was fun to stitch. So the biggest pain about this is when you get down to 8 Maids of Milking and 9 Lords of Leaping, you just stitch the same thing over and over again, and it kind of gets a little bit monotonous. But, you know, you just have to power through it. I really like how she copped out and put all of the pipers inside the house practicing. But so I didn't have to stitch 11 pipers. But and this was fun, and I really like how it turned out as well. So that's kind of a sampling of some of the things that I've done in the past. And so now I just want to quickly show you progress on some of the projects that I've worked on since my last video. And so the first one that I've only worked on 3. So the first thing I've worked on was my winter sampler. Of course, this is what it looks like again. And I was working on this when I started when I did my last video. So this is, I'm going to try to show this without, I've got a lot of part threads on this because my colors are working horizontally a little bit, and so I end up with a lot of part threads. But here it is. So you can see now I'm getting more of the countdown banner, and then there's a ribbon that says Happy New Year that's starting to show up. I'm almost finished with this ski scene, and then Santa is starting to show up, and I'm also starting to see a gingerbread man. Down there in the corner, I am actually really close to the actual corner of the piece. Now, one of the things that I found about diagonal stitching that's kind of a pain is that your diagonals get longer and longer as you go until you hit the other corner, and then they're going to stay the same length until you hit the corner on the top, and then they'll start getting shorter again. So with a piece like this, it's okay, but with like my Autumn Magic, I suspect I'm going to get to a point where my diagonal is so long that I'm not going to finish a diagonal in a rotation. So then it's not going to look like I'm making any progress, but we'll deal with that. This is the next piece that I worked on was red, of course. And I need to pull the threads up. This is what she looks like now. So I've been able to stitch up here. Her arm is starting to appear coming up here. And I've also, this dress, I finished this flower here. And this is, I think this is a big bow. Also, I've gotten into, there's a couple of water lilies colors in here that are showing up right here. And I'm stitching those horizontally because there's a little bit of variegation and I don't want to take the risk of having diagonal stripes in her dress. So that's where she is right now. And then the final piece that I worked on just last week is English Garden Sampler, which will look like this. And I've been stitching the border, and I'm really proud. I'm really happy with how this is, how much I was able to do. So when I started, I've stitched this entire side down to the corner and been coming across. And I'm actually really surprised that I was able to stitch that much, because the last time I worked on this, I was only able to do the across the top. And I was able to do so much more. I think what's happened is I basically got this border memorized. And so I just stitch it in 10 stitch increments and just go with it. So I'm happy with that, where that is. So that's all I have to show you. Once again, I want to thank you for all of your wonderful comments. Sometimes I stammer a little bit, and it's not because I'm necessarily nervous. It's because my brain tends to run 10 times faster than my mouth does. And so sometimes I trip over my words because my brain is trying to think of what to say next instead of concentrating on what I'm saying now. So thanks for your patience with that. Once again, thanks for all your wonderful comments. I never dreamed that I would hit over 400 subscribers on my first video. So you've all been wonderful, and I really appreciate it. Feel free to like, comment, or subscribe if on this video. And I'm going to try to do videos once a month. My plans for this month, I'm going to be stitching my Corazon sampler, mallard. And then I have a bit of a dilemma. I whined about Autumn Magic, about how it was so big and how I was kind of demoralized with it. And then I talked about how I wanted to add a new start. And now I get down to the bottom. I'm getting down to the bottom of my rotation, and Autumn Magic is actually pulling me. I can't believe it. It's never done that before, but I'm kind of getting a pull to go up and start Autumn Magic again. So I'm wondering if I've hit peak whip, that I have enough to keep me interested right now. So I may not do another start. But then like Stephanie at Lindy Stitches, she shows her starting And a Forest Grew, which is a pattern that I have that I want to stitch, and that kind of gives me the itch to start that or something like that. So I don't know what I'm going to do when I hit the bottom of my rotation. I may just go back up and come back down again, or we'll see. At any rate, so I know that I'm going to be doing Corazon sampler, and then the mallard that I started and stitched on one day. I want to stitch more of that, and then I'll either go back up and start working on Autumn Magic, or I'll start another piece. So I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess we'll see what happens when I get there. So you'll have to tune into the next video, or follow me on Instagram, and you can see what I decide to do on Instagram. At any rate, thanks for watching. All the information will be down in the notes that you can check for anything else you want to know. And once again, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Goodbye.